In this video, I'm going to show you some quick tips to retouch a face. So the first thing I do when I start retouching is I normally duplicate my background layer. So to do that, I right click on it and then hit duplicate layer. Again, I can right click on the layer and hit duplicate layer. I can also click this layer and drag it over my new layers tab. That'll give me a new layer as well. The reason why I duplicate my layer is because I don't want to mess up my original. So things get a little hectic. So duplicating a layer is not a bad idea. Another thing you could do is you could always mask the area as well, but we'll get into masks another time. Okay, so I got my layer duplicated just in case something goes awry. The first thing I want to do is try to remove some of these blemishes on her face. Again, when I retouch very conservatively, so I don't want to make her look like a totally different person. I kind of want to lightly retouch the face so you look like yourself, you don't look like a different person. And to me, the idea about the beauty of retouching, if you do it correctly, is you look good in your picture without people knowing that you've been retouched. That's my goal. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to go over here on my tool panel. I'm going to go down to my spot healing brush tool. So here's what I tell people when we retouch. You know when to use the spot healing brush tool or the healing brush tool. It's because it's shaped like a band-aid and the band-aid goes on skin. So whenever you're retouching skin, remember the band-aid goes on skin. So always go to the band-aid. These two tools work pretty much the same. The only difference is the spot healing brush, you can just tap, tap, tap and retouch. You don't need a reference point or a source point. With the healing brush, you need a source point, which means I would have to find some blemish-free skin, copy it, and then I can use it to brush over the blemished skin. So again, the spot healing brush will figure it out for you. The healing brush is you kind of got to figure it out on your own, and I'll show you what they both look like. So let's start with the spot healing brush. Spot healing brush is super easy. All you're going to do is make sure you're on the layer. I'm on background copy layer. This is the layer I'm on. All right. I usually take a brush that's bigger than the blemish. So my 19 is about right. I'll go a little bigger, maybe to like a 26 is good. And then for my hardness, anytime you're retouching, you don't want any hardness. You don't want to have circles on the face, and it makes it look splotchy, like the person has chicken pox or something. You don't want that look. So you always want to have 0% hardness at all times. Always 0. Okay, so with the spot healing brush, I literally can just tap, and the computer tries to figure out what that should look like on its own. And so to me, I don't like the way it looks. It looks to me like the computer guessed too light. And that's just in my opinion. So I can click around, and it tries to just figure it out on its own. So it works better in some areas than it does in others. So now let me show you what the healing brush looks like. Healing brush looks like this. Same brush, just works different. With the healing brush, I can go to an area where the skin is clear. I usually go just outside of the bump, so that way the skin is typically the same color. I don't want to go over here on this cheek because maybe the lighting's different over here. If the sun is shining this way, maybe this side is in the shadow, and I don't want to put a shadow piece of skin on a bright piece of skin. So I always go closer to the bump so that the area is the same, the skin looks the same. I'm going to hold down my Alt key on my keyboard. I'm going to zoom in real quick so you guys can see how my cursor changes. When I hold down my Alt key, my cursor changes into this crosshair. So I'll do it again. When I hold down the Alt key, it changes into this crosshair. When you see the crosshair, that lets you know it's ready to take a sample. So to sample, all I need to do is right click. I'm sorry, not right click, just a normal click. So I'm going to normal click one time. Now my cursor is loaded with fresh, clean skin. So I'm going to take my new skin and put it right over my blemish. Isn't that lovely? So for this darker blemish, I notice, and this is just my experience, I notice that the healing brush works better than the spot brush, to me. Now as you as you Photoshop, your preference may be different. Some people live by the spot healing brush and they don't use the healing brush tool at all. I personally, on darker blemishes, I typically use the healing brush, and then I use the spot healing brush for everything else. Okay, so that's the biggest difference. Healing brush, you got to hold down that Alt key to get a sample of clean skin, and then begin with just your tap. I call it a tap, or you're clicking. You just click around the blemishes. All right, so since we got the darkest one already removed, I'm going to go back to the spot healing brush, because spot healing brush does really well with these little ones like this. It does really good. And I'm just clicking on them. You just click on them. You just click. That's it. Nice little click. There we go. Nice little clicks. And it kind of figures it out for you. In this area, I think I might healing brush it as well. Because again, when you get to those darker blemishes, sometimes it has trouble figuring it out. So I'm going to hold down my Alt key. I'm going to come over here and tap in a little bit. Yeah, I like the way that looks better. All right, I like it. Okay, then I'm going to switch back to my spot healing brush. And it can handle all this little stuff. There we go. And so again, I don't have people looking completely blemish free. I just try to get rid of the main things, you know, the main blemishes. Especially if somebody has typically bad skin, because you never want to, you know, make people feel bad, like, oh, you retouched my face. So you want to be conservative. You just want to get kind of the most important ones. So for me, this will be great. This will be good enough. All right, I'm going to zoom out. So here is her before. Here's her after. Before, after. Okay, so I see a little something that the spot healing brush did when it tried to figure out what to do in this area. So I'm going to go to my healing brush, take some skin that is close by. I'm holding down the Alt key, and I'm just going to tap around just to smooth that out. Okay. So for me, this is done. I'm done. There would be nothing else I would do to this image. So for another person who likes that, I call it that porcelain doll look. It kind of creeps me out personally, but people are into it. If you want that smooth, flush porcelain doll look, I'll show you how to do that as well. You never know. You may want to venture off into those waters. So to do that, I'm going to use my quick selection tool. There you are. I'll zoom in on that just so you can get a better look at it. Here is the quick selection tool. We've used this before with our ducks and our penguins. All right, I'm zooming out. And so what I want to do is I want to select around the face. I'm just kind of going to go around the face a little bit. And so what I'm doing right now is I'm going to end up turning this into a mask. Let me keep going. All right, so what I've done is, and we've discussed this before in class, right now I've selected everything but the face. I need to inverse my selection. I'm going to go to select, inverse, and now I have just the face selected. That's it. So what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to go up to select. I'm going to click refine edge. Okay, the next thing I want to do is click Smart Radius. I want to bump my radius up a bit, not too much, maybe to like, I don't know, maybe like, let's do like 6, somewhere in there. Yeah, 6.5. Okay, that's great. Next thing I want to do is I want to erase where the hair and the skin meet. Because what we're going to do, what this is going to do is smooth out her face. Because remember, we're going for that, I shouldn't say creepy, but that porcelain doll effect. And I don't want my hair to necessarily be affected by it. I don't want smooth porcelain hair. All right, so I got my Smart Radius selected. I bumped it up to 6.5. Next thing we need to do is output it. So we're going to output it as a new layer with layer mask. I'll zoom in on that so you guys can see it. So I went down here. For output, new layer with layer mask. And then we're going to press OK. All right, so let's see what we got. Let me zoom out. Okay, so now notice we have our image and then we have this mask over it, okay? So the next thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and add that surface blur. The surface blur is what gives us that porcelainy look. So I'm going to go up to filter. I'm going to go down to blur. And then surface blur is the very last one on the list. So here is our surface blur. So again, that was filter, blur, surface blur. Here's where the fun stuff starts happening. So you see how she instantly gets that porcelainy look, that, you know, fake, I've been photoshopped look. So you can play with these to make it look as fake or as natural as you'd like. I think I'm gonna, yeah, that's good for me. The radius I got is 12. It could be a little less. It could probably go back to 8 or 9. I'll leave it there. And then the threshold, the higher you make it, the blurrier it gets for that soft General Hospital as the world turns glow effect. So oh, there we go. Okay, so I'm gonna press OK on that. And so now she looks really creepy and smooth because nobody's skin really appears like this in nature. So from here, what I would do is the blur goes on everything. It goes on the hair, it goes on all of that. So I personally, let me zoom back up. I personally erase. I take my eraser and I erase. Let me click on the layer. I erase the eyebrows so it comes back sharp and looks like hair again. I usually erase the eyes because we don't want that blur over the eyes and the eyelashes. So anywhere hair is, I take my eraser and just erase that blur off of them. And you may say, Tanisha, what are you erasing? Let me cut this layer off. That's what we've really done. We've really made a mask over her face. So here's her. Here's her with the mask. Here's her. Here's her with her mask. Okay, I usually erase the teeth as well because I don't want a blur on the teeth. That looks creepy. If they wear jewelry, I erase from their jewelry, their hair, anything that should be sharp, I make sure it's sharp. Okay, so me personally, this is still a little too creepy for me. So what I do is I change my opacity. I'll zoom in and let you see where opacity is. The opacity is right here. The reason why I changed my opacity is because I'm very conservative when I retouch and I want to make it look as natural as possible. So to kind of push back that, you know, porcelain doll effect, I take my opacity and I just scale it back a little bit. I just fade it a little bit. So if I did like 50%, it looked like this. I will probably go till about 70 or 80% is good. Yep, 80% looks better. All right, so let's see what we've done. This is 80%. Let me go to history. This is 100%. 80%, 100%. So just so you know, that just that 20% decrease, now I can see more of the natural contour in her face. It's not all blown out. The creases look better to me. They're not all blown out. I personally don't do, you know, extremely fake retouches. I don't like it. But there are some people that love it and they want it and they'll ask you, you know, up front for it. So let's go through all our layers so we can see all of what we've done. So this was our original, the background layer. It's our original. Here she is once we remove her harsh blemishes. And then here she is. This final layer is the one with the mask. So one more time, this is the before, this is with the retouch, and this is the layer with the surface blur. So play around with this. I'm sure you'll have a lot of fun with it. Don't go overboard, people. Don't go overboard. And I will see you all in the next video.